Jacob is back at it here to give all of you another franchise ranking video as I just got back home from seeing Spider-Man No Way Home in the theaters, and now it's time to rank the entire Spider-Man franchise. This ranking will include the major 8 Spider-Man box office movies that have come out, such as the ones with Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and of course Tom Holland. This ranking will not include Civil War, Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. Also, missing from the ranking will be any Spider-Man animated cartoon and all the Spider-Verse movies that have come out. So just so we're clear, the major 8 Spider-Man movies that have come out in the theaters. And a few things I want to cover before I get into those details. Number 1, this video will include spoilers for all the Spider-Man movies, even No Way Home. So if you aren't caught up to the point where I am in watching all the Spider-Man movies, which is all of them, then I highly suggest that you don't watch this video any further to avoid spoilers. Again, I'm going to be talking in detail about Spider-Man No Way Home. So, don't watch this fucking video if you are planning on watching that movie but haven't yet. Watch the movie first, and then come back and watch this ranking video. Number 2, and very important number 2, I am not a Spider-Man fanatic. I never read any of the Spider-Man comic books and never watched any of the cartoons or animated series that Spider-Man was on. I know what I know because of the Spider-Man movies. I've seen all 8 of his movies plus Infinity War, Endgame, and Civil War. That is what I know about Spider-Man. And I don't remember all the details about Spider-Man. So if I'm forgetting some stuff, if stuff I'm saying doesn't quite make sense, well, maybe I forgot a detail or something like that. So just so you're aware of it. And then number 3, objectively, this is my opinion. Is it the right ranking? Probably not. It's my ranking. So if you differ than me, if your ranking is different than mine, that's fine. We're going to disagree. Just make sure that you leave your ranking in the comments section, just so I know where you're coming from. Don't just comment your list or your ranking sucks and don't say anything else. I mean, if you comment, I'm cool with that, but at least give me something to go off of. It would be appreciated. And of course, this goes without saying, if you're a fan of Spider-Man or if you're a fan of JDev TV, smash that like button. And please make sure, since I'm trying to grow the channel, that you hit that sub button, subscribe to the channel, and join the team. So let's start the ranking off. My least favorite to my favorite, and I will say this was a very hard list to do because I'm not the biggest Spider-Man fan, and I had a hard time getting through all these movies for the most part, and I just rewatched all these movies within the last week. So my number 8, unfortunately, and I didn't want to go number 8 with this one, but I had no choice, The Amazing Spider-Man Part 2. I wanted to like this movie. After I was done with it, I'm like, is this the worst one so far? And then after I see No Way Home, I'm like, God, this unfortunately has to be the worst one. There are some things that I like about this movie. The movie surprised me. Gwen Stacy died at the end. I was not expecting that. I hear apparently that happens in the comic book. Well, guess what? I've never read the comic book, so I didn't know about that. I like the whole mystery with Peter Parker and his father. And then he finds the abandoned train car that he did all his research in. I thought that was good. So this movie has some good qualities, and I generally did like the second half of this movie for the most part. I think the biggest problem with this movie, in my opinion, is Electro. I think Electro just doesn't make sense, or he's just too cheesy to me, and I found his parts too long and too drawn out, and they became boring. And I think they rushed Harry's transformation from this point to this point when it should have happened in the last movie. That way we don't have to deal with the transformation in this movie and then him being evil for the majority of the movie. I think that would work. But all in all, unfortunately, this just is the worst Spider-Man movie that at the moment at least. Now, if I do or watch all these again for the next Spider-Man movie, maybe my opinions will change. But as it stands right now, I had to put The Amazing Spider-Man Part 2, number 8. Number 7, This will probably be a lot of people's number 8, I think. That would be Spider-Man 3. This movie, again, has some things that I really like about it. I'm glad that Harry, in the end, teamed up with Peter, and they fought off the Sandman and, of course, Venom. I liked that. I was happy that that did happen. I felt like Harry should have transformed evil at the beginning of the last movie, been kind of the second villain in the last movie, and then been the main villain, and then turned in this movie. I think that would have worked better, but what do I know? It's Spider-Man. I'm kind of blind when it goes into Spider-Man movies. If, for your reference, I am an X-Men fan, but do I know a lot about the X-Men either? Probably not, but I know more about them than Spider-Man. I read some of the comic books for X-Men. Not all, but I'm an X-Men movie fanatic, that's for sure. So I think that worked. I liked Harry's, turn, but of course Harry unfortunately dies, which is unfortunate. I don't like Mary Jane. I just don't like Kirsten Dunst as a whole. I think there are better people for Peter Parker out there, and I think Mary Jane is two-faced, and I just don't like her in this movie. There are some parts that are really annoying with her. Another thing I didn't like is when Peter Parker gets the symbiote in him and starts acting crazy and walks down the street. It's just cheesy. Now, some people actually really like that part. I don't. I rolled my eyes and went, oh my God. It's my opinion again. The part with him in the jazz club, that was way too over the top. In my opinion, again, objectively, it's my opinion. But unfortunately, there's not a lot I can say good about this movie. I didn't really like Sandman all that much. It seemed like he's this evil guy, he's this evil guy, he's this evil guy. Oh, they're fighting now. So all of a sudden I changed my mind and I'm not evil anymore. Like, he was out for vengeance, and then all of a sudden he's like what I did was wrong. Like, I don't know. That's what I get from it. And then I didn't mind the stuff with Venom and Eddie Brock. I guess maybe it's different when you watch it in the TV show or something else, but I didn't mind that. I thought that was entertaining, and I liked kind of the rivalry with Eddie Brock and Peter Parker or Spider-Man. I think that was pretty good. I think the scenes with Peter Parker getting rid of the Peter Parker getting rid of the symbiote in the church and then passing it on unknowingly to Eddie Brock in this particular movie. I think that was good. But all in all, unfortunately, I didn't like this movie that much. A lot of things are forced in this movie, and I didn't like it. What can I say? So that's why I put Spider-Man 3 as my number 7. My number 6 is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, some of this movie is very boring. I think the beginning is very boring, but once the middle starts, I think it's mildly entertaining. I do like Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard. I like him as a villain, and I think it was good to make him the villain, and he was the villain. He didn't have a partner or anything like that. It was just him, and I think that worked. I liked the chemistry between, of course, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, and apparently they were dating, so that's why their chemistry seemed so good. Some people say it ruined the movie, their chemistry. I don't think so. But I like that, and I guess I forgot to mention it's Spider-Man 3. Another good part of that, of course, is J. Jonah Jameson. He's fucking awesome and everything. What can I say? Back to Amazing Spider-Man. I did like Dennis Leary a lot in this movie. I think he was one of the most interesting things about the movie, and I really liked the whole third act of this movie. I thought it was really well done. In my opinion, you guys out there and gals may hate it, but I, for the most part, liked a lot of the stuff. It's just the beginning was a little boring, and it took a while to get to the point, and I was a little annoyed with some of the stuff, and but all in all, it's good. I think Martin Sheen did a very good job as Uncle Ben, and Sally Field as Aunt May. They were okay. I might as well mention that. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else about this particular movie. The whole mystery about Peter Parker's dad, I think that was intriguing. Now, I don't know what the actual story is behind it or if they have multiple stories behind his dad, but from what I recall, there's not much mention of him in the Sam Raimi Spider Man movies. Could be wrong. Again, it's Spider Man. I'm not the biggest Spider Man fanatic, so what can I say? But that's why I put Spider Man, or The Amazing Spider Man, as my number 6. Number 5. I went with Spider Man Far From Home. To me, this movie, there are parts of it that are very cheesy. In all, I think Jake Gyllenhaal's character of Mysterio was very cheesy. And some of the stuff in this movie were cheesy, but I can't help but mention the fact that I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and he just works as Spider-Man. It's weird. He's older, but he looks young as hell, and the stuff he does just works. And I like the whole stuff with him and Mary Jane in this one. His partnership with Ned is great. Happy's all right. Nick Fury in this movie, but he wasn't really Nick Fury because Nick Fury was on an alien spaceship or alien planet or something like that. That was a little hard to understand once it got revealed to me. The end cameo by J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson was fucking awesome. I love that part where he reveals that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and that was pretty awesome. But for some reason, just some parts of this movie seemed very, very cheesy. So that's why I put Spider-Man Far From Home as my number 5. My number 4. This is where you're probably going to really disagree with me. Spider-Man 1. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 1. Some of this movie is good. I feel like some of the acting isn't that great in this. I'm not a huge fan of Tobey Maguire. I don't like him. Although I love him in Brothers. That's the one exception. So if you haven't seen Brothers yet, it has Tobey Maguire, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Natalie Portman. You need to watch Brothers. Awesome flick. But we're talking about Spider-Man here. I just don't like Tobey Maguire. I don't like Kirsten Dunst. William Dafoe was okay. People say he's amazing as Green Goblin. I don't see that in this. He's okay. Upon my rewatch, he was okay, but I don't think he's this amazing character. James Franco as Harry, he was all right, but again, there were some issues with his character. But I think the people that saved the movie, at least for some of it, are Aunt May and Uncle Ben. They were really good, and I guess eventually in the movie I come to like Tobey Maguire, but I'm not a big fan of his overall. Norman Osborn as Green Goblin and what happened is interesting. The fact that he dies and then Peter takes him back to where he lives and Harry sees it, and then this is not about us sort of thing, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. But, I mean, hey, at least it made my number 4. I know most of you would probably put it in the top 3, so it's not that far off. And maybe some of you would put it number 1 because it's the first one that you saw. It's the one that you grew up on. But I just put it as my number 4. My number 3, Spider-Man Homecoming. So I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I just think he works as Spider-Man, which he makes me like Spider-Man more. Like, I can't help it. And this movie was really good. And you know who's really good in this movie was Michael Keaton as Vulture. He was awesome. And I remember going to see this opening night with my friend Alex. And he really loved the movie. And I thought it was okay. I was interested and I was intrigued. With the part when Peter Parker goes to pick up his daughter, and then he opens the door and he's like, he gasps like I've never heard a gasp that lasted that long. Like all the air came. It was just fucking hilarious how he was shocked by that. I wasn't shocked, but I was like, oh shit. So that was pretty damn interesting. I like the whole stuff with Happy, and I like the whole stuff with Tony Stark in this particular movie. Aunt May, Marissa Tomei, she's fucking hot. You go from I don't even remember the old lady that played Aunt May in the Raimi trilogy. I think she's 91 now. But, you go from her to Sally Field. And actually, rewatching Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man Part 2, I forgot that Sally Field and Martin Sheen were Aunt May and Uncle Ben. That's how I've only watched both of those movies now twice, and I hadn't watched them since they came out on Blu-ray, so it was interesting. But Marissa Tomei is Aunt May. Whew, I love me some Marissa Tomei. She's pretty good, and I just this movie was fun to me. There were parts that were boring, but it was fun, and the whole movie is just. I guess I could just say it's fun. I enjoyed it. The villain in this movie, Vulture, was amazing. I can't stress that enough. He was fucking awesome, and I wish all villains were as good as Michael Keaton was in this. And there are movies where the villain is really good, but this one, I just felt like he was above and beyond, in my opinion. And the scene with all the people with Avengers clothes on and robbing the ATM was pretty fucking awesome and hilarious at the same time. But yeah, I've been kind of repeating myself now. That's why Spider-Man Homecoming is my number 3. So this is decision time. My number 2 favorite Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 2. Obviously, Alfred Molina is Doc Ock in this movie is fucking priceless. He does fucking amazing in Spider-Man 2. I still get the annoyance of Kirsten Dunst in this movie. She's two-faced as fuck for Mary Jane. And Tobey Maguire irritates me, but he's okay in this movie. You have the well-timed scenes with Aunt May to be the voice of reason for things that go on. But the stuff between Doc Ock and Spider-Man was pretty awesome. And then, Spider-Man can't be with Mary Jane. At the end, she goes to his house and fuck it, we're together. You get introduced to the landlord that all he says for a while is rent, rent, rent. That was a classic, and I used to imitate that guy to my roommate all the time and say rent, rent. So that's another funny part about it. But I mean, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock was pretty awesome. He's a very good villain, but he wasn't really a villain. He just got his mind controlled by whatever the thing was. I can't remember what it was called. It was a little weird, the part where he dropped Spider-Man off at Harry's when he could have just taken what he wanted anyway. Who cares what Harry Osborn has to say? But it is what it is. But that's why Spider-Man 2, and I probably didn't go into enough details with that one, but that's why it's my number 2. Which means my favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, you guessed it, Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, this movie was pretty awesome for the most part. A little slow at the beginning. J.K. Simmons stuff was great. The Spider-Man having to hide his identity, well, he can't hide his identity anymore, but having to realize that everybody knows what his identity is now, and having to deal with that, and then having the issues his friends can't get into MIT because of that. Ned and MJ. That was good, but of course the movie picks up when you get Doc Ock showing up, and then you get Green Goblin, and then you get Electro. And Jamie Foxx was much, much better in this movie. You get Lizard, you get Sandman, and they all did a pretty good job in this particular one. And of course, you get the scene where Ned figures out he can do magic, and he says, "Give me Peter, let me find Peter." He finds Peter, and then Peter goes to the portal, but it's not Peter Parker he thinks it is. It's Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker. So that was awesome. And then he says, "Get me Peter Parker." Well, now you get Tobey Maguire jumping through the portal. So that was pretty good. And I was a little surprised because, honestly, I didn't think Tobey Maguire and Andrew Lincoln, I'm thinking Walking Dead, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were going to be in the movie that much. I was pretty sure they were in it, but I didn't think they'd be in it as much as they were in it. and that was pretty cool. The scenes with all of them interacting, the three Spider-Men, was pretty awesome. Was a little sad, not gonna lie. They killed off Aunt May. I guess a lot of people knew that was gonna happen. Like the writing was on the wall. I didn't know that. I know there was talk that this was gonna be the more tragic Spider-Man, but I didn't realize they were gonna kill a very hot Marissa Tomei Aunt May. But it is what it is. But yeah, this was definitely an enjoyable film. A lot of fun with this one. You know, putting as much as you can into a Spider-Man movie, and this is what they bring us. I really enjoyed it. It was touching. It was great. Doctor Strange, I haven't even mentioned him yet. He didn't really need to be in the movie. Well, I guess he had to be in the movie to be the one that makes the spell, but I felt like he wasn't really a part of the movie, even though he was in the movie, if you get where I'm coming from with that. And then the whole, like, stuff where, you know, Peter Parker, Tom Holland, decides that he wants everybody to forget him again. And he wants everybody to be fine. He wants all the portals to close or whatever, and he just wants everybody to forget him, and pretty much leads to the fact that Tom Holland is no longer in the MCU, at least for now. I'm sure maybe 10 years down the road, maybe he comes back and he somehow makes people remember. I'm sure there's something like that going to happen. You can't just end Tom Holland like that. For now you can, but I'm sure at some point he will be back in the MCU. But as it stands right now, it won't be in the next 5 years or so. That's for sure. And then, of course, the end credits scene with the whole Venom stuff, which I actually had never seen the second Venom yet, but I know what happens in the end credits scene. So we get Venom in this end credits scene. He's talking to a bartender, and all of a sudden he goes back to where he was supposed to be. So there isn't going to be a Tom Holland, Tom Hardy movies, apparently. But the symbiote is still there, so you'll have a Spider-Man with Tom Holland by Sony with Venom in it. So that should be interesting. Hopefully they cast a badass Venom. Who knows who that'll be. So yeah, all in all, this movie was cool. It was awesome to see, you know, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland all be Spider-Man and all help each other out and all their funny stuff that they do. Unfortunately, Aunt May had to die in this one, but it is what it is. So that's what I have to say about this movie. And maybe I'm leaving something out that I shouldn't leave out, but I guess Doc Ock being good for the majority of this movie, that was pretty good too, and he helped out at the end, which is always a plus. So that's really all I have to say about it. So just in case you weren't paying attention, let's give you the ranking one more time. This is my official ranking as it stands right now. Of course, things could change the next time I rewatch all these movies. Number 8, The Amazing Spider-Man Part 2. Number 7, Spider-Man 3. Number 6, The Amazing Spider-Man. Number 5, Spider-Man Far From Home. Number 4, Spider-Man 1 from 2002. Number 3, Spider-Man Homecoming. Number 2, Spider-Man 2. And number 1, Spider-Man No Way Home. So I hope you enjoyed the ranking. Really all I want to do is give the ranking. As far as explaining the movies, it doesn't really matter. The ranking's the thing that's the most important part. Again, if you're a fan of JDev TV or a fan of Spider-Man, make sure you smash that like button. If you want to share this video across all your social media platforms because you like this ranking so much, by all means, do so. I'm not asking you to do that, but if you want to do it, I'm okay with it. Just make sure you let me know so I can give you proper recognition for that. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about your thoughts. What would your Spider-Man franchise ranking be? Leave that in the comment section. You don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but I know some of you will. And last but certainly not least, I'm trying to grow the channel, so don't forget to hit that sub button, subscribe to the channel, join the team, show your damn support, and of course, be a part of something special. And JDev will return.